typical, and it says tear and share Christmas tree because I forgot to update the details. So apologies, it's not tear and share Christmas tree. We are doing the Christmas cake decorating, and we will be doing it in about a minute and a half once I've had moments to sort out the gremlins this morning. I say it every week. I'm surprised that it actually goes to plan, and this morning it's not. Typical, but never mind. We are here. Good morning, Crumbers. I hope everybody is well. Crikey, we've got one Sunday left until Christmas. I can't believe it's here really quickly. But so we've got one we've got today, and then there's one more Sunday, and then in 2 weeks' time, this will all be over, which is quite scary. I don't know where the year has gone, especially with everything that has been going on in the world. But we are here this morning. We're going to be making we've made our Christmas cake. We made our Christmas cake back in November. And this morning we're going to be icing and marzipaning that and getting it ready to decorate, ready for Christmas Day, or just to marzipan and ice it and get it ready, and then you can decorate it on Christmas Eve. So we're going to be doing that this morning, and it's exciting. Isn't that final countdown going? And fingers crossed the gremlins have worked themselves out of the system in a moment when we get stuck in. So if you are joining me, it isn't a tear and share Christmas tree. I've made a complete boo-boo this morning. It is actually Christmas cake decorating. Let's get that one off the screen. Let's get stuck in. And hopefully, no, my little thing's not working either. So we're just going to have to transition over in the main thing. So then, guys, we are doing an iced Christmas fruit cake. I'm just going to move everything around here. It's a traditional centerpiece. Most people now, I think, don't actually go for a fruit cake, but it is still one of those Christmas traditions that everybody sort of loves. And even if you don't eat it like me, it tends to be a little bit of a showcase piece thing. So we made this back on the 29th of November, so that was the first Sunday of Advent, which is Stir Up Sunday, and that's traditionally sort of when Christmas puddings or Christmas cakes are made. We went through all of the bits and pieces around that. So this guy has been in here since then, so a good 3 weeks. Every week, every couple of days during the week, so maybe twice a week, I've been feeding him with brandy, to keep it nice and moist. Now you might have done this without alcohol, so your cake might have been in the freezer. If you have got a cake in the freezer, you want to make sure before you ice it that it is out and well and truly defrosted before you get stuck into icing and decorating, because you don't want to trap any moisture in. So get it out a good day in advance, let it come up to room temperature and defrost and thaw out, and then just let it settle before you get sort of stuck back in. So this today then is we're going to be marzipaning and roll-out icing. We're going to be using a nut-free alternative to marzipan, which is here, which I've made. This is because I'm nut-free. I'm nut allergy, so we don't use marzipan, but I'll be talking about this alternative to it once we get on to the decorating. We're going to be decorating it with a roll-out icing, a ready roll icing that you can buy in the supermarkets. You can even now buy this ready rolled and pop it on the top. And then we're going to be doing a quick sort of simple decoration with this one. We're going to be keeping it nice and simple, so I've got some cutters which I'll be going through with you as well. And you can marzipan and ice this and then pop it back in the tin and leave it until Christmas Eve and then decorate it then, or when the kids are off school, so you could sort of make it a family sort of thing. But this is the main base of the marzipan and the icing. And this recipe itself actually is used for all sorts of celebrations. It's used for Some people keep them, that have them as wedding cakes, and then keep it for the christening cake and all sorts like that. So fruit cake tends to be a little bit more out of favour. When I was doing wedding cakes, most people now were going for fruit cakes. But there is still people that like to have at least one tier of their cake as a fruit cake that they can keep. Ours is still in the freezer 8 years later. But this is a recipe that can be easily adapted to anything. We're just making it Christmassy. So let's just move some tins out of the way. Let me see if the little thing is going to work. No, technology is conspiring against us this morning, so I have to do this manually. Let me just transition that over then. So ingredients wise, obviously the majority now is in the cake. That's done. So you're going to need we're using ready roll. You can use ready to roll sugar paste. You could make up a traditional royal icing and slather it on so it looks like snowdrifts and it's big and thick and it's all wavy all over the top. But we're going to be going with a ready to roll sugar paste. Now this is just a store brand one, but there's lots of other ones out there, all sorts. Now, and we're going to be colouring this as well for our decorations. You again in the bakery section where you find this, you can also find coloured ones as well, sort of different colours, reds, greens, etc. But I am going to be colouring some as well. I've got some offcuts, the bits that I haven't used yet, so I'm going to try and use those first. You're also going to need marzipan, and again, sort of similar, you'll find in the supermarket a block like this. Now with marzipan, you can get white marzipan, you can get normal marzipan, which looks a little bit yellow. Again, you can make your own, but even Nigel Slater suggests that actually you can just buy it. It's sometimes easier to do so. This is, however, one that I've made. This is a nut-free version. Marzipan is made with ground almonds and almond extract in that almond essence. And if you are nut-free, like myself, if you want to you want a Christmas cake, you want traditional cake, but you don't want to have the nuts in it, you can make this. Now this is made with semolina instead of ground almonds, icing sugar, butter, and vanilla extract, and that literally is. I'll pop the ingredients for this sort of in the comments afterwards, but this is just whipped up quickly in the mixer, or you can do it by hand, and then I've just formed this into a disc, and a bit like pastry, I've chilled it overnight, and then this has been coming up to room temperature this morning, so it's nice and pliable and ready to go. So this is, like I say, you're still going to get the that sort of double layer there through, and we'll talk about why we marzipan when we get to it. So that's our marzipan. You're also going to need a little bit of jam for this to stick to our cake, and we're using an apricot jam. This is a sieve one, so there's no pieces in here, but we're going to be using that. You want something like an apricot or a plum, because it's sort of the marzipan and the royal, the icing are really quite intense, sugary sweet, and obviously you've got your richness of the cake. So if you put anything like a strawberry or a raspberry on, it's going to add extra sweetness, and it's really overly sweet then. So you want something that's still got a little bit of sweetness, but isn't going to add to it. It's going to cut through. So something like I say, like an apricot or a plum is perfect. An apricot's slightly more traditional, but if you can steer away from the strawberries and the raspberries. That's our ingredients, and this is all we're going to need for icing and covering. In terms of equipment, obviously you're going to need a rolling pin, unless you bought one of those ones that's already pre-rolled, and that's a bit like pre-rolled pastry. You just unroll it and pop it onto your cake. You're going to need a cake board, maybe not necessarily, but this is, I'm going to pop my cake onto this because I'm going to decorate it on a turntable. You don't have to, but this is just going to help me lift it and add a little bit more stability to my cake, and that's going to sit underneath, and we'll talk about that then. You can buy these in the shops. It's really thin cardboard. You can also make these yourself if you've got some food cardboard, like sort of from the thing. You can sort of foil that as well. And you're also going to need just a few other things. You're going to need a sharp knife because we're going to be cutting our sugar paste and our marzipan, a pastry brush for our jam. Now to decorate, I'm going to be going very, very simple. We're just going to white ice this, and then I'm going to be making like a holly wreath garland around the top of my cake. So for this, I'm going to be using some sugar paste cutters with, oh, I don't know if you guys will be able to see these if I get them. Oops. This is where the manual focus comes into play. There we go. These are, I've got a triple holly one there and a single holly one as well. Let's just get that focus. Oops. Back. On the back. You can also get snowflake ones, Christmas tree ones, all sorts, stars, and all sorts of things. So I'm going to be using those. You can also use just regular cookie cutters, the little ones, or you can make them as well. You can make decorations. And we're going to be doing it all out of the sugar paste. So these guys are going to come into play again. So if you've got sugar paste spare from your rolling, that's pretty much what we're going to use. I'm going to be colouring that with some food gels. These are the Pro Gel ones that I love, that you've seen me use before, reds and greens, obviously for holly. But I say you can buy coloured paste in the supermarkets, so you don't have to get this messy. And you've also got anything else that you want to add on, sprinkles, sparkles, you can get edible luster, all sorts of things like that. Once you've got the base on, once you've got that marzipan and that icing on, how you decorate it is entirely up to you. I've seen people get edible pens and let the kids draw all over it. That looks really cool, actually. Really personalised Christmas cake. Or you can make little decorations, or if you've still got them, the ones from the 80s that we all had, the little Merry Christmas and the Santa and the Robin and the Christmas trees made out of little green bottle brushes that have probably got a big chunk of royal icing stuck to the bottom. Chuck them on, get all the traditional stuff out, get the ones that have been passed down through the family for 20 odd years, or 30 or 40 in my case, but I remember them. My mother probably still has them in the drawer. But how you decorate is entirely up to you. And if you look on Pinterest or on the internet, there's so many different ideas out there. So many different ideas. But I'm going to keep this one pretty simple. Right then, I'll talk about these when we get to icing. But if you, I haven't put them on the equipment list because not everybody has them. But these are smoothers. And we're going to be using them for helping smooth over our sugar paste and our marzipan. I've got just a couple of different ones, but these aren't, they're not essential for home, they're just what I have because of sort of having made cakes in the past, and I can guarantee you, I'm going to appallingly decorate this cake. Right then, let's just get the old hair back and rinse the hands. Right, so then, our cake. This guy has been now fed for the last 3 weeks. I'm hoping I've been feeding this with brandy, which is what I soak my fruit in, but if you've used a whiskey or a rum or something like that, you can, it smells good. So, oops. Every time I've soaked it, then I've re-wrapped and re-foiled, ready for today. Now, I'm just going to pop that for recycling. Now, I made a 6-inch fruit cake, so yours might be a bit bigger than this. but don't worry. Oh, this smells amazing. This is how our fruit cake came out. So you see, I used a dark muscovado sugar when we did this. So this is why it's got that really rich, dark colour to it. And we added the black treacle. If you want a paler, lighter Christmas cake, you could omit the black treacle if it's in your recipe, or use a lighter soft brown sugar or a lighter muscovado sugar there. So when I soaked it upside down. So I soaked through with putting the brandy into what would have been the base of our cake when we baked it. It smells amazing. And so this has now been soaked. There's lots of holes on the top. Now, when I took this out, I took a little chunk out here. And you may find that when you do it, you've got some holes and things in there, but don't worry, we're going to plug those up. So don't panic if you've taken your cake out and it's got holes in it, or you're thinking, oh no, I've taken half of it away with me. We're going to fix it. It's fine. We're going to fix it. So you'll need something to do this on. Now, it could be on a big plate. It could be on a big board. This is a marble Lazy Susan that my mother bought me when we had the shop, and I was like, why are you buying me a Lazy Susan? But actually, it's nice and big and heavy, and this was her idea, and it's perfect for decorating cakes. So if you've got something like this at home, go for it. Go for it. So what we're going to be doing then is, to start off, we're going to get our cake sort of ready and stable. So with my cake board, and we're going to marzipan at first. I'm just going to get my cake onto here. So let's just unwrap this. Now, like I say, this is a nut-free marzipan. It's made with semolina flour, 200 grams of semolina flour, 200 grams of icing sugar, 150 grams of butter, and some vanilla bean paste. I will pop that recipe in the comments, because it's not a normal marzipan, but it works and is the same as marzipan as well. You might find it's a little bit crumbly, but don't worry, it's fine. So this is what it looks like. It looks like marzipan. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break off a little bit to start with and just mold it in with my hands. This is where I'm going to get everything everywhere today. So, yes, I apologise. So with our cake, I'm just going to place it over the top, centrally onto my cake board. Let's get rid of this so we've got a little bit more room. There we go. So now I've got the top, the flat bit is the top. With a fruit cake, unlike a sponge cake where we level it off, you don't really want to do that with a fruit cake unless you've got a huge dome in it. But ultimately, because we've baked this low and slow, you should have a fairly flat top. But what you'll do is you'll get this gap here, and we don't want to obviously have that showing when we ice. So with our marzipan, this is what we're saying about plugging things. We're just going to roll a little bit out and just push it in that gap there. There we go. Just with your finger, get it in so it's sort of flush. Any excess you can peel off. And this is also just going to help us keep it nice and stable. So in here, and it can come up the side of the cake because it's just going to keep it nice and flush. There we are. Just keep going around. And now you can see that what I mean about filling the holes. We're going to do exactly the same here. This is going to be one of those days. If anybody has any questions as we're going through, please let me know and I can answer them as we go along. I can see them all pop in, but yeah. Right, we'll keep going, nearly there. You can do this as one big long sausage of marzipan if you prefer. This nut-free one is a little bit more crumbly than a regular marzipan, which is why I'm doing it piece by piece. Now, marzipan, if you don't want to use this nut-free alternative, or you don't want to use marzipan, you can double ice this, and I have done it in the past for people who weren't a fan of marzipan and didn't sort of want this either, is to double ice it. And the reason more than anything that we marzipan is traditionally when it's iced with royal icing, the colour of the cake would show through, so having the marzipan gave it an extra layer of protection, so you didn't see the cake through your beautiful white icing. But it has now become one of them things where people actually probably love the marzipan layer more than the sugar paste itself. So I'm just plugging up any extra there. Like I say, don't worry if it's coming up the sides. It's all fine. Just little bits. So yes, you can double ice this. It will be very sweet if you double ice it. Mind you, it's sweet with the marzipan and this on it anyway. This is very crumbly compared to marzipan, but it works a treat if anyone has a nut allergy in your house. So, I'm not going to go too mental with leveling it off. You can spend a lot more time doing it if you want. So we've got our rim there around the edge to settle our cake and get it sturdy. If you want to now, you could check this with the spirit level, and if I was doing this for a wedding or anybody else, I would do. Make sure it's all nice and level. But I have this gap here that we looked at when I took it out the tin. So what's going to happen if I ice and marzipan that now? That's just going to fit into this hole unless I wanted a sculpture cake. So I'm just going to plug that up with some of my marzipan. There we go. It's like plastering at some point. So that's that little hole plugged up there. I've got a couple of little ones over the top. I mean, some people are religious about plugging the holes in the top. And if, like I say, if I was doing this for an event or someone, I would be doing that. I've got a little hole here on the side. So let's just... There we go. And I'm just sticking any big holes. It's just where the fruit, where it's baked, I'm just filling those there. There we go. So this is then, hold on, let me just... Sticky. This is the bit with this. It is sticky. You've got the sugar paste, you've got the marzipan, you've got the heat of your hands. So this here then, as you can see, I filled this gap, and there's a, oh, oops, nearly Louise. Forgot it wasn't stick, and I filled some holes on the top. Good catch there, nearly lost it. And as you can see around the edge as well, I filled that side, which is keeping our cake nice and stable. Now, if you're using a proper cake turntable, they tend to have a non-slip base. And if you've got any non-slip matting or anything like that, feel free to put it beneath your cake. Don't lift it and tilt it. Lesson learned. Right then, so, excuse me. Our next thing that we're going to want to do is to roll this marzipan out and then ice the rest of our cake with it now. And to get this to stick, we're going to be using the jam. So, like I said, we're going to be using an apricot jam. We want something that isn't too sweet. So no strawberry or raspberry, which is really, really sweet. This stuff is sweet, the sugar paste is sweet, and the cake is really rich with all that fruit in it. So going with something like an apricot or a plum that's a little sharper rather than full on sugar is better. So this here, let me just grab a spoon. This is an apricot jam. This is just an Aldi one, but it is it doesn't have any bits in it. You want, if you can, one without any bits. I'm just going to put 2 tablespoons in there. So you want one without any bits, because if you put bits, it's got chunks in it and it's going to come all over your cake and you're going to get a chunky cake. You can strain it with a sieve, but a lot of places now do smooth jam. So I've popped a couple of teaspoons into my saucepan. I'm just going to heat this gently on the hob. Remember, if you've got a microwave, you can do this in that. And what we're looking for is actually that jam needs to have boiled. It needs to have come up. It needs to be thin. It needs to be sticky because we're going to brush our cake with it. If it's not cool, if it's not sort of, if it's too cool still, it's not warm enough, it's going to still be quite jammy texture. So it's a bit more of a syrup than the jam itself. So not straight from the jar here. So whilst that's just heating, I'm just going to move some bits around, because the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to be rolling out our marzipan. Now, I'm going to do this straight onto the work surface. Which I have prepped today. So just moving some bits out of the way, and then we'll... so my jam is starting to boil. It doesn't take long at all. So 30-second blast in the microwave and it will come through. So we're gonna, it is coming up to boil. So that didn't take long at all. So I'm just going to pour this into a little heat-proof bowl first. Just give that a moment. We'll do that before we start anything else, because then if I start that and then the jam burns, then I'm all over the shop. Just, if you are doing it on hob, just give it a stir every moment so it stops it catching on the outside. This next bit, you are going to need some icing sugar and your marzipan. Okay. This is something you don't want to do with small people and with the kids, because hot jam is not pleasant. It is very, very, very sticky. So I'm just going to pour that into a little heat-proof bowl because it's easier to work with. Get rid of that. So our jam now, I won't tip it up because it's hot, is a syrup, and it has boiled. So I'm just going to let this cool down a moment. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be rolling out our marzipan. We're going to be doing this with a little bit of icing sugar to help, and that's sort of like you would with if you're rolling out pastry. We're going to be doing that here. We are going to be making an utter mess, so I apologise in advance. Now, you can get things like these baking mats, actually, which you can roll out, which are non-slip. This is an IKEA one. It's quite handy, got some unit conversions on there and all sorts of things if you're doing chocolate work. But it's just non-slip. So I'm just going to actually knead my marzipan on this to start with, just with a little bit of icing sugar. And I'm going to put all this together. Now this nut-free one, like I say, is quite crumbly. So you might find you don't need to work it very hard to bring it together. So just give it a gentle knead. If you're doing this with proper marzipan, it might need a little bit more than this. With this one, you can chill it as well. Like I said, I chilled this overnight to help everything come together. So I'm not kneading this one like I would need a sugar paste because it is just going to be a little bit too much for this to go through. So let's just bringing it together. Now there's two ways to marzipan. Depends on your school of thought. I was watching some videos last night because I do mine the way my granny taught me to, which is to do the sides and then do the top. You can also do this in one big piece over the top like you would do icing the cake, and which is what we're going to be doing with icing anyway. I might actually do this all on the mat if I can, because it might just help the mess situation. So I've just given this a good knead. I'm going to ice sugar. If you've got an icing sugar dredger or something that you can sprinkle icing sugar with, trust me, it's so much easier than getting the stuff everywhere because you just get covered. Right, just whilst we wait, we'll just do that. What we're going to do then with this is our jam has just slightly cooled down now, and our brush. So you just want a pastry brush and load it up. And just if you were glazing an egg wash on some pastry or something, just give it a good cover all the way over the top and over the sides. And this again is going to help seal everything in. There we go. Now some people just like to do this. You don't have to have the marzipan. Some people just like to have dried fruit. I think so. You can decorate this. You can decorate a cake without doing all of this if you want to. You can put on some candied fruit, some nuts, a bit like a Dundee cake. You can then cover it with the glaze, with the jam, if you prefer. Obviously, then you haven't got all the sugar paste. I mean, come on, who eats sugar paste? The sugar paste, when we have Christmas cake, that's always the bit. It's always the bit that's usually left over. People peel that away. They peel away the marzipan, or they peel away the sugar paste. You see them eat the marzipan, and then the sugar paste is the bit that's left on the plate. Who's been to weddings like that? That's probably why people don't have fruitcake very often now for weddings. They decide, because people aren't going to eat half of it, they just peel it off. Now, I'm just finished off round here. I have got a little bit on the laser scissors. So what I'm going to do is I will clean that off before we put it on. We put any icing or marzipan on because over the top, because that will just stick. So just going to give that there we go. And just get a little bit of kitchen roll and just clean up around the edge there. So just clean up, because we're cleaning up, because if we try and put anything on and it's stuck, it's just going to get covered in what we've got on the side there. So just a little bit. I'm hoping none of my fellow cake decorators are going, what are you doing, Louise? Right. So So we've got one cake that's filled and things, and we've plugged our holes, and we've apricot jammed this. Remember, apricot, we don't want anything too sweet for our jam. So that is all glistening and ready to go. So back to our marzipan now then. We're going to roll this out, and I'm going to roll it into a strip that I can then put all around outside, and then we'll put a now, do I do it that way? Yeah, we'll do it that way. That's the way I know. That's where I talk. We'll go round the side, and then we're basically going to put a lid on the top there. So we're just going to move that to the side for the moment. You're going to need a rolling pin. However, you've got one at home. This is a acrylic one, and we've dusted, like we say, we've given a real good dusting with the icing sugar. So when you're rolling out, just gentle pressure, especially with this nut-free one, because it cracks. But you can roll it out. And we're looking for about 5mm thickness. And if you're using real marzipan, it will probably be a little less, what's the word, crumbly than this. So what I'm going to do, I think, is do this in 2 pieces, and you can do it in one. Things like baker's twine can help at this point. You can sort of use it to get a good idea of the circumference of your cake, although there's quite a few places out there now online. So this is my length of my cake. I'm just going to double that up so I've got an idea. I'm just going to mark it. So I know that's about the right sort of length here. I'm not going to be too worried about anything really, because this is going underneath, but I want it to be sort of relatively. So I'm just going to cut 2 very large triangles. Now you can do this with a rule, a pizza cutter. If you've got a good hand, just get straight in there and do it. So say this nut-free marzipan is very crumbly, so it's doing this one is making sure it's that it's not, you handle it a little bit carefully, but don't worry, it's fine. We're not going to see this bit anyway. So shouldn't say things like that, because you know, I'm just going to keep all my bits that I'm cutting off to the side, because I'm going to use this for the top. I might need to roll another rectangle. I'm just going to measure this against my cake. Well, no, we should be all right. We should be all right. I say you can do this as you would normally ice cake in one big flop over the top, one big roll down. You can also do this as one big ribbon around the outside, or you can do it like I'm doing in 2 pieces. Like I say, this is a nut-free marzipan. It's made of semolina, so it's not as it's a little bit more crumbly than we'd like it to be. It's fine. So with our cake now and our strips of marzipan, I'm just going to gently pick it up and place it round. Oops, this side. See, I told you it was a bit crumbly, this one. That's fine. Don't panic. I'm just placing it then around the edge of my cake. I'm just going to take off that bit where it's crumbled. There. I'm not going to push too hard on this at the moment. So then we've got, oops, let's pick it up from this end. It is very, very crumbly. I'm going to place it, I'm going to link that up there and here. And this is where I had that crumble on the joint, and I'm just going to, with my sharp knife, where they are overlapping, just, oops, come on, come on. Just going to make a neater join there. In we go. And on this side, this is, as you can see, it's a little bit crumbly, but never mind, it's fine, it's fine. I'm just going to work that a little bit to seal everything up, and then just on oh, sorry if that happened whilst I was mid that. That's that 30-minute rule with Canon cameras. So I've got this all, I've just plugged up the edges there. Now before I put the top on, these are what I was talking about. These are smoothers. Now you can do this with hand, make sure that they're clean and they're dry, but you can smooth over with your hands. But these, I'm just gonna smooth my marzipan, just gently rubbing it backwards and forwards, just smooth it over, especially on my joints. I'm not pushing hard on it, it's just a gentle smooth, but also it's just helping that marzipan now stick to the cake. I can just, now these have got a straight edge and a curved edge, as you can see. We'll be looking at these when we do the sugar paste. You can get them on eBay, you can get them on Amazon, you can get them in cake shops, you can get them all sorts. You don't need them, you can do this by hand. It just is, sometimes if you've got them, it helps a little bit. I'm just going to wash my hands before we do the top because they are a little sticky. And then we'll get on to the next bit. Right, so we're now going to make a lid for our cake, and you want something that's going to give you a rough size of that. Now you can use a cake board if you want to, or you can find a plate that's far too big. Or a bowl that is just about the right size. So we're going to use a bowl as our template. Like I say, you can use the cake tin that you made the cake in. Mine's hidden away now. Or you can use the same as the cake board, or just a bowl or something. But what we're going to do is we're going to trim this top off, and then we're going to put a layer of marzipan on top, and then just seam it. Ready then for the next bit. So here we go, back with our marzipan again. And I'm going to roll this first before I trim. So let's get the cake out of the way. Bit more icing sugar. So we've been working this, so it's a bit sticky as well. It's a bit crumbly. Now you can use this nut-free marzipan as well for if you want to make some Battenberg, which is on my list for next year, before anybody else. Make sure that we've got enough there, using our bowl as our template. And again, with our sharp knife, I'm just going to trim around the edge. Now, I do mine in sections rather than try and do it all at once, because ultimately I end up making a mess. So, and you can use this marzipan, this nut-free marzipan, the same as you would do a normal marzipan. You know, if you want to make, some people make marzipan fruits from the top of their cakes and all sorts of things. So, and again, that thickness was about the same as we've got on the sides, so 5. So that is our marzipan top. And before we go in, I'm just going to trim off my edges. So again, I'm just going to do this in sections. So I've got the 2 joins, and I'm just going to make a couple of incisions. But what I'm going to do is just put my knife level to the top of my cake and very gently just run it round. Now, you want to do this with a very sharp knife and a sharp, smooth knife rather than a serrated knife. Serrated knife will tear it. And just, oops. Don't worry if it gets a bit. I know it looks so nice and flat with that smooth line before you get in chopping it. Don't worry, it's fine. Now the offcuts here are the bits that if I need to fill anything, I'm going to use, because obviously I don't want to put them back in with the marzipan that hasn't been near the cake, because this has got all sorts on it now. So if I need to do any filling with any holes, this is what I will use. And the untouched marzipan can be wrapped back up. This now can be used, it can be fridged if you're going to use it. I wouldn't necessarily eat this like you normally eat marzipan, but you can pop that in the freezer as well. So if you're not using anything until whenever, don't worry. So with our top now then, I'm just going to take the last of that jam and just give it on the edge, just a little bit. I don't want too much now. And I'm going to get a palette knife just to help me lift this. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to lift this and place it on top of the cake. I'm just going to run a very large palette knife underneath it to help remove it from my base. And with my hands, place it over the top. Now, all these things that I'm using, you don't have to have. If you haven't got them, you can just do it by hand. Just be gentle when you do it. And now that's on top, I'm just going round on the seam there and just gently pulling that over. I'm just going to finish off again with my smoothers on that seam just to help. I quite am proud of that. That's the first cake I've marzipaned in a while, so. And I used to do how many of these? Crikey, so many, but. And you can use just the palm of your hands just on that edge there. So this is our cake, marzipan. Now you can leave this if you want to. If you're going to royal ice your cake, you want to leave it now. You want to leave it for a couple of days just to settle down. Because if you put it on now, it's just still wet and it's a bit soggy and all of that sort of stuff. So if you're using royal icing, this is the point when I would pop it back into an airtight container for a day or so just to let it settle down, and then I'm going to ice it with my royal icing, or I'm going to leave it until just before Christmas and then ice it with my royal icing. But you can also now wrap this up and pop it in the freezer as it is. But this is our fruit cake or marzipan. I'm quite proud of that. We had the Yule log last week, and then we have a really nice looking marzipan cake. But we're not stopping there today, so let's just get rid of a few bits and pieces and have a little bit of a clean down, because we're going to go on to sugar paste now. We're going to get this cake sugar pasted, iced, sugar pasted, Louise. And I'm going to be doing this actually on the work surface for rolling out rather than on here, because I prefer to roll my sugar paste straight onto the work surface. Those pastry mats though, however, you can get them from all over. That one is from IKEA, but they are great if you're doing stuff like this and you just want to then pick it up and move it out of the way. So it's over there and I'll wash it up later. Hot soapy water, that's all it needs. Right then. Let's just make sure we're clear of bits and pieces. Sugar paste time. So now with this, what we're going to do is I'm going to use cold boiled water to stick my icing to my marzipan. So I it has disappeared, so we're going to we have very hot water here. Actually, I'm just going to pop a little bit from the kettle, so you might steam up, for which I apologise. Let's just boil some water quickly. I thought I had some. Come on, kettle, you're on the lowest option. This might steam up because the kettle is over there. If it does, I apologise, and we will be back as soon as the steam is dispersed. So you want some cold boiled water, so this is going to boil, and then whilst we get everything ready, it will cool down and it will be fine for using to ice our cake. So this is our cake. I'm just going to put this out of the way now so it can sit over there. Let's get rid of that. All these things you don't necessarily need to do. You can do it all by hand. It's not a problem. So we're going to be using roll-out icing today, or sometimes called sugar paste, sometimes called roll-out icing, sometimes called ready roll, sugar fondant paste, all sorts of things in different parts of the world. There's quite a lot of water in there. Didn't expect there to be that much, but hey. But we're going to be using ready roll white icing. Now you can buy this in a block. This is a kilo block from the supermarket. There's all sorts. There's Renshaw, there's Dr. Erika, there's store brands. This is store brand, and it ranges in price. But it's probably about £2 for one of these blocks. This one I bought just in case I didn't have enough, but then I realised I've got quite a lot still that I haven't finished using in the cupboard. So this is a small block of white, which I'm not going to, I'll keep that now for making decorations. But this here is a big block of white, and I just keep them wrapped in cling film and double wrapped in a bag, because as long as they're airtight, they are sugar. Obviously, you've got dates on them, but we're just going. I've had these over the summer, and I should have enough actually in here to not warrant opening a new bag, a new packet. I say you can get ready coloured as well. So come on, where's the end? So if you want to use coloured icing, we're going to have to rip this one because I've lost the end. You can just you can buy it pre-coloured, save you getting all messy with things like that. I can't get this open today. I'm just one of them mornings. It's one of them mornings, and a bit of red there. Let's get rid of those. Put that in there. So we've got the water is cooling over there, and a bit like we just did with our marzipan, we're going to knead this first. We're going to be using sugar, icing sugar once again. Let's just get rid of the rubbish. This is the thing, and I'm going to do it straight on the work surface. And again, icing sugar, lots of it, because you're going to need it. So this is the arm workout now. Somebody said something about an arm workout to me. Might have been Gina about this, but it shouldn't need too much. But we're looking for it to be pliable. I'm going to whack my watch off actually. Although I think I could just give you some steps. We want it nice and smooth. All come together, so give it a good knead. It's good for the old bingo rings on my tops of my arms. And I'm just kneading through. A bit like if you're kneading dough, we're trying not to get any air bubbles in here as well. Not trying to trap anything in it. And once that's there, I'm gonna pull this into a ball. Make sure I've got no air trapped. Let's give it a roll. There we go. It is total arm workout. So this now we're going to roll out to about the same thickness as our marzipan, so 5 ml. A £1 coin if you're in the UK. And with our sugar paste then, when we're rolling, we don't want to put too much pressure on, and we're not going to try and roll backwards and forwards. Just going to try and always roll in one direction, and then use the rolling pin to pick the icing up and turn it around a quarter of a turn and keep turning it around. We're not going to flip it over like you would do with a pastry, because we only want the icing sugar on one side, or try to anyway. So when you've got ready, make sure you've got plenty of room. We're going to be making sure that we've got enough icing to go across the top and down the sides, so we get a big skirt. So if you've got a large rolling pin, these are the most helpful. But if you've not, it's fine just with a normal rolling pin. Just remember where you're placing your pressure, because otherwise you'll end up with thick bits on one end and thin on the other. So very gently, just start to roll out your sugar paste. And then after a couple of things, pick it up, grab some of that sugar from beneath it, and go again. Keep rolling out. You see, when you're rolling, I'm placing my pressure, or the pressure of my hands, as far from the centre as possible. It means I'm not putting all the pressure in the middle, which means that I can end up with a thin bit on the outside. By having my hands as far apart, it means that I'm applying an even pressure to the sugar paste. So in theory, it should all be the same thickness. Let's just give it a little bit more sugar. And this one's walking away from me. I'm going to turn it around, bring it a bit closer. Now this does think, you might think, oh, it's taking ages to roll it out because we're only going in one direction. But trust me, in the long run, it's better for your sugar paste because we're not pulling and pushing it, we're just working it in one direction, not Harry Styles. Once it gets too big to pick up with your hands, you just place your rolling pin gently on the top and flop it over at the top, and you can lift it and it will help turn. And then again, quarter turn all the time. Just gives us an even, oops, no, you stay there. Should be coming circle-like. I'm just gonna, I want to get this top corner here a little bit more round. So I'm just going to give it a couple of, and then one more, I think, and then we'll have a little bit of a, oops, wrong way, so. Let's say you can do this on the roll-out mats. I just find when it comes to the sugar paste, that actually I prefer doing this on the work surface. And I think I just want to roll this top corner out, so I'm going to do a 180 turn. There we go. So I've got this very large piece of sugar paste now, and for my cake then, I want to make sure that I've got enough to go on the top and the sides. So you can measure this with a rule or whatever, but what I tend to do is just, I eyeball it. So I'll put my rolling pin over the top, okay, right, that's the sides. And then I know roughly what my height is. So as long as I've got enough there, that's me, I'm eyeballing it. But you could use the string again, like we just did, to do the marzipan around the outside, or you can use a rule and make sure that you've got plenty. But you want to make sure you've got more than that, because what's going to happen is we're going to put it on, and then to make sure it doesn't bunch up and we've got enough, we're going to pull those pleats out from around the outside. I've never iced on camera before, so I'm hoping it's going to be all right. Before we get there though, I'm not going to lift my boiled water, my cool boiled water, because it's quite full. I'm just going to, the same as what we did with the apricot jam, is I'm just going to brush this over the top. That is very, very full. Oops, you don't need to see a close-up of my head, but you're going to, for a moment, I apologise, check out those roots. And I'm just make sure I'm doing it on the edges, on those corners, the join of the marzipan, and then just around the sides. Now, I'm not drenching this. I don't want it to be wet. I don't want it to be sodden. So I've just gone round and just given it a very light layer of cool boiled water. And just again, because I don't want my paste to stick to my board. Sorry, I've got a great big thing of sugar paste in the way. I've just run around the edge of the Lazy Susan with a piece of kitchen roll just to get rid of any excess water. Right, this is the bit I've never done on camera before, and it's the bit I sort of get, We're gonna ice this now. So we're gonna get ready. I'm gonna use my rolling pin to lift this over onto the top of my cake. I'm gonna want a sharp knife ready to go. And if you've got smoothers, you want these, or you want clean, dry hands, because we're going to use our hands. We're going to use our hands to help it set, to help it stick, but also to help us get it nice and flowing, smooth out the way on the board. So here we go. Like I just said, with us turning, we're going to use the rolling pin to lift our icing. So I'm going to get it on there, and with my cake, I'm just going to layer it over. So we've got our cake. Now we need to work sort of quite quickly now, because we don't want the weight of the icing to drag it down and tear it. So I've just gone round the top there with my hand, just using the palm of my hand on those edges, because that's where it's going to tear if it does, because the weight will come through. So now you can see I've got all this icing, and I'm just going to start by bringing it out and then pushing down. Oh, crikey. I can feel all my fellow cake people going, what are you doing? Don't make a mess of it. Just gently pushing it, and then keeping an eye on that seal on the top. And again, if it does crack, don't panic. Don't panic. Just let it, give it some support, give it some help on that corner. I'm going to turn the fan off because it's just come on. And just gently all the way round. And you're going to end up then with a very big pleat in one side. And what we're doing by doing this is pulling it away, is that we're gently coaxing that excess out. As you can see here, it's all frilly. This is all excess sugar paste that we don't need. So just give it a lift and a hand. And then I'm just going to smooth off there. So we're now to a point where we need to take off the excess. So again, I'm going to do this in sections. I'm not going to go all the way up to the edge of my cake just yet. I want to give it some room still to maneuver. So I'm leaving a good centimetre or so at the base. Now this excess you can use for your decorations. So don't throw it away, or you can roll it back up and seal it again. So this will just go into an airtight container or sealed in cling film. I'll put it back into the thing. But as you can see now, we've got quite a lot of sugar paste still around the outside. Now here you can do it with your hands and smooth it and push down on these edges. Or if you've got one of these are the smoothers. We're going to use the straight edge rather than the rounded edge. And this is the straight edge at the bottom. It's just to left-handedness here. I'm just going to push down. So I'm sort of sealing that all in. I'm just going to do it here and then I'll show you, because obviously left-handedness and camera in this kitchen aren't in the right position. You want to make sure you've got no air bubbles in there between the marzipan and the icing, and this is all helping that. So then I'm just going to before I take any more icing off, I'm just going to smooth around. Now, if you do find you've got an air bubble in there, don't panic. You can take a hat pin or a pin and just pop it later, and then it will sink back against the marzipan. So now I've got sort of quite a sharper edge here. I'm just going to go around with my knife, and whoops, this is why we don't want water or any jam or anything on the base there, because if it sticks, it's a nightmare. Don't worry about the tidying up, we're going to do that afterwards, but let's just get through that one. And again, I do this in sections rather than trying to do it all at once. If you've got craft knives that are sterilised, you can also use those. I used to get scalpels from a medical supplies company, which obviously are sharper than anything, which was always good for getting really sharp edges. Now I just use a very sharp knife. Let's just pull that out. And thank you for you guys that have been sticking with me as I've done Love's Ice and decorated this morning. It's if anyone does have any questions though, or anything, you know, don't be afraid to shout up. This is a bit of that ASMR sort of thing, isn't it, with the old cake decorating. So I've got now, let's get this last bit off. Come on, come on. I've got, this is my off coat. There we go. I'm quite proud of that. No, that's quite a good one, considering I haven't done this for a while. Not having had the nephew's birthdays this year, we haven't iced any cakes. So, this is as far as depending on what you're doing, it's as far as you want to go. So, let's just bring this up here. It does look very white because it is very white, but we've got our sharp edge. What I will do now is, before I decorate it, I can decorate it in situ. I'm going to place it on the cake stand, and I'll probably decorate it from there. I might add a little bit of actually a ribbon, just a ribbon trim once it's in place, just to hide this edge seal. You could put all sorts around it. You could put foliage like rosemary and sugar crystallized cranberries, so it looks like holly and berries, but obviously it's not holly. We don't want to be putting anything that maybe has anything on it. So sprigs of rosemary work really, really well for cake decorating. You can crystallize them a bit like the fresh cranberries and stuff like that. But I'm going to lift this onto a cake stand. I'll put the red ribbon around, and then on the top I'm going to decorate it. I don't think we're going to have time to show you how to decorate it, but we have used these cutters before in the Yule log and in the reindeer cake and all sorts. I'm just going to put the sugar paste to one side, but you can use that sugar paste or use coloured ones. And you can colour it. So here I've got green, and I've used these, which are the Pro Gel food colours. Now you can buy food gel colours in the supermarket, and they are they're great. You just need a little bit, and then you put it in, and and you knead it together. But the best way for doing colour is to put it in the centre and then fold it all in on top of itself, and then knead from the outside in, because otherwise it could, you get it everywhere. If you just put the gel on the top and then you knead through, all you're just going to do is end up with the gel, the colour all over your hands. So I've got plenty actually. Otherwise, I was just trying to think what I could show you, but you can make up lots of different colours. So I've got greens, a couple of different greens. I've got red. The colours I'm going to be using are bright green and holly green. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these cutters. I'm going to use some of the 3 sprig that we looked at earlier. Oops, that, and some of the 1 leaf. And there's all different sizes. There's little diddy ones. These come in packs of 3. You can find them on Amazon and eBay and in cake stores, and I think probably even in some supermarkets now. But you can find these there. They're great. There's quite a few links to them on the site because I use them a lot. I think they're great for just getting a really fab look on your cake. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out a load of leaves in the different colours, the different sizes, and then I'm going to place them around the top of my cake in a wreath pattern. So they overlap each other, and they've got this really pretty wreath. And then I'll pop some little berries through as well, made with some red sugar paste. You could add a little ribbon. So if you're using ribbon on the outside, you could fashion a really nice little bow and pop that here on the top to finish your wreath off. Or if you fancy making a sugar paste one, you can do that as well. I've just realised we don't really have a lot of time to go through the decorations now, because we took our time and our care and our attention on getting our cake to this position. And the thing is, like I say, you don't have to do anything like that from now on. You don't have to use these decorations. I've seen some people now will take a cookie cutter for a star, for example, and just cut them out of the top, not going through the marzipan, cutting the sugar paste, and then just taking it and then filling that with sprinkles or little Christmas silver baubles, the edible ones, the dragées and stuff like that. When you do that, you just want to push gently in, and just so you know that you're through that top layer of sugar paste. Don't cut. If you're going to do like a cutout cake, do that once the icing is on. Don't be tempted to roll it all out and then cut it, because what's going to happen is when you lift it and when you put it on, it's going to stretch and it's just going to look right. So, but let this settle down first. Let it settle before you do anything else, and then go in with the icing. I've seen people do all sorts with these. You don't have to do this white iced. You could do it red iced and make it a big present, big sugar paste bow on the top, or you could make Santas. Like I say, you can get out the retro with the old bits of royal icing on the top and put them on as well. You can get one of them big Christmas thrills that go around the outside. Seem to always be in the drawer every Christmas and had a bit of the previous year's Christmas cake on it. But this is it. This needs to just settle a little bit first. It's taken a little bit of battering, we've marzipaned it, it's had apricot jam on it, it's had warm water on it, it's had sugar paste on it, but it's all good. So we're just going to leave this now to settle. I'm just looking here, maybe have an air bubble there, just where I didn't seal it onto the marzipan very well. I could take just a pin to that later, and just to prick the hole and then push it back onto it, so like that. But this is our Christmas cake, iced, marzipan and iced. Don't forget we used the nut-free marzipan. So let's just have a quick. I realise you guys have been with me for ages, and we need to just get cracking again. So for the recipe, this was today An iced Christmas fruitcake. This is just our traditional centerpiece. We've iced it, we've marzipaned it with a nut-free alternative, but you can use regular marzipan. And we've got it to a state now where you can decorate it. Can leave this guy now till Christmas Eve, pop him in a tin, leave him, let him do his thing. He's been fed. The marzipan and the icing has sealed it all in, so it's perfect. It can be fine now until Christmas Eve. Or decorate it and keep it as a showpiece. Keep it on a cake stand with a glass dome over the top, and it looks great. It is a recipe that you can use for any celebration, whether it's a christening or a wedding or Christmas, or just because you fancy a fruitcake, an anniversary, all sorts. It is utterly perfect for that. And I will be putting the whole thing up, the icing and the decorating of the Christmas cake will be going up on the blog as soon as I can get it up there. And in terms of then our ingredients for this bit, it doesn't need a lot. We're using the ready rolled sugar paste, we're using ready rolled marzipan or nut-free marzipan, and we've used that little bit of apricot jam just there to seal that on, and then we've used a little bit of cool boiled water between the marzipan and the sugar paste. Equipment wise, you just really need your hands and a rolling pin. You don't need all the other bits and pieces. Hands, rolling pin and a sharp knife, let's be honest, and something to brush everything on with. But I've used some smoothers and big rolling pins and non-slip mats, all of that. You don't need to have all of that. It is really quite simple. You can just roll it out on the work surface. Just use those techniques and a little bit of patience to get it through right for you there. And then for decoration, like we've just been talking about, sugar paste cutters, sprinkles, colours, all sorts. Just get the retro stuff out of the cupboard. It is fine. Right then, it is quite late on a Sunday morning. I'm sure you guys have got other things to be doing. So I'm going to actually let you guys and leave you. Thank you very much for joining me and sticking with me as we've iced and marzipan the cake this morning. I will post up a picture of the finished cake once it's all done. And I will pop the ingredients for the nut-free marzipan into the comments when we're off here. The full recipe for the cake is in the Stir Up Sunday Kitchen Live, so I'll post a link to that. It isn't too late. If you haven't made a Christmas cake, it's not too late to do it. Do it this weekend, ice it next weekend, just give it a little bit of rest time in between because it likes to settle down and things. Next weekend is our last Sunday before Christmas. I said it, it's quite scary. But we will be doing homemade mince pies. We're going to ease into Christmas quite gently. We're going to be doing some homemade mince pies and making our own sweet short crust pastry. Can't wait for that because I haven't had a mince pie yet this year. We are having a possibly final, unless I do one the day before Christmas Eve. Depends what happens. We are having another bonus episode on Wednesday evening. You guys asked on Wednesday for Christmas tree brownies, and the Tear and Share Christmas cake just nudged out ahead. So we're going to be doing Christmas tree brownies on Wednesday evening. Don't forget to join me here on Facebook, YouTube, and in the Facebook group. One day I'll figure out how to get this onto Instagram as well. But thank you very much. This is the Christmas cake. If you're icing and marzipaning today, good luck, take your time, put the Christmas tunes on, have a little bit of the Michael Bublé, maybe a glass of Christmas cheer as well, and get icing on your Christmas cake. And until next week, I hope wherever you are in the world, you are safe and well. Thank you very much for watching. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.